I made a video game. It's called Are We There Yet? And it features fully voice-acted cutscenes, a robust and emotionally captivating story, responsive physics, and a lush green environment set in the English countryside. It's also really ugly, full of bugs, and was made in 48 hours. But that's sort of my point. Shall I explain? Let's talk game design. So I've done another game jam. Very quickly, a game jam is a timed event where you make a game based on a theme. This one was Ludum Dare. Apparently it's pronounced Ludum Dare because it's Latin, but it's spelled Ludum Dare, so... It's there! And the theme was Stuck in a Loop. A few years ago I entered a lot of these. They run twice a year, get a lot of entrants, and are a good excuse to flex your rapid game development muscles over a weekend. Over the course of entering about a dozen, I came to learn what can and can't be accomplished in 48 hours. In fact, we've been here before when I entered the Ms. Jam in a previous video. That was different though, and much easier, as it came with a lot of assets already made and certain other freedoms that I'll get into later. So this is really a question of scope, and what's possible in 48 hours. There are two reasons why this game doesn't look particularly good. One is that it just needed to be functional. In fact, the guide to entering the competition on the Ludum Dare website specifically mentions that programmer art, shorthand for art drawn by someone who doesn't have any particular skill in making visual assets, is both welcome and indeed encouraged. Which is lucky, because the other reason the game looks bad is I can't draw for sherbet. This helps with the scope and scale of what I'm trying to do. If I want a tree, I just open paint.net, which is my preferred replacement for Microsoft Paint, and draw a tree. As long as it's identifiable as a tree, that'll do. For the game itself, to fit with the theme, I wanted to go a bit abstract. When you initially hear Stuck in a Loop, you might think of a time loop, like the mind-bendingly good Outer Wilds. Or you might think of a 2D platformer, where you're cooperating with past versions of yourself, like a billion indie games that I can't actually think of right now, but I'm certain they exist, so let's just pretend that I put footage here. I know that second one is true because that's what I immediately thought of. But I thought, no, let's really break it down. And then I thought of Swindon. I have a very good friend, an incredibly supportive and deeply sarcastic friend, who has the poor misfortune of living in Swindon. And in Swindon, they have this. This is the Magic Roundabout. No, not that one. A feat of city planning so hostile and complicated that it could only exist in an otherwise unremarkable grey concrete English dystopia. I should know, I live in Birmingham and we have this. So I've got my loops. Now how do you get stuck in them? Well, you get lost. And in this age of Google Maps, if it's going to be believable, we're going to need a reason to get lost. So who could still get lost these days? How about a forgetful, stubborn, not entirely tech-savvy older gentleman? Basically, someone's dad. And where would a dad be going to get lost? Well, given our inspiration is coming from England, probably the seaside with his wife and child. And ta-da! We've got theme, narrative, gameplay, visual design, all in one neat package with a flash of inspiration and about 5 minutes googling complicated roundabouts. This is an example of, teachable moment, idea generation. It's very important in a game jam where you have limited time, because your idea doesn't necessarily need to be a good one, but it does need to give you a starting point to actually, start. This can also work if you're stuck for something to do in a larger project. Have a browse around and find something that makes you think, oh, that's interesting, and then think about why it's interesting to you, how you can apply game mechanics to it, and what that might play like. Then try it out. Let's talk some more about scope and scale, because this weekend has led me to another teachable moment. Whatever you think you've got the time to do, halve it. Then halve it again. This is incredibly holistic, and I don't have any data to back it up at all, but I do have some advice that I've followed since I've been doing game jams, and it's meant that I always submit something, air quotes, complete. Here's my top tips on how to succeed at a game jam. And I don't mean to be all clickbaity, but when I say succeed, I mean have something at the end of it. A lot of game jams are judged, and this isn't about getting into the top of the rankings. There's several factors that make winning a game jam much more about luck or notoriety than skill. But if you follow these tips, you'll at least have something at the end that you can be proud of. Put everything you need in one prototype environment. At the start of a game jam, you should be nailing down your core mechanics and your primary gameplay loop. Get all of that, as much as you think you're going to need, in one instance of whatever engine it is you use. The best way I can illustrate this is with an example. I use the slightly less well-known ClickTeam Fusion 2.5, because I've been using ClickTeam software since Click and Play, and I haven't yet set aside the time to learn anything else. Fusion is sorted into frames, which I think other engines like Construct, Unity or GameMaker call levels or viewports or rooms or something. All you need to know is it's a big box where all of your stuff goes. Get everything in that one big box, even if it's not going into your first level. because then you know it's working and you can just copy and paste it to make new levels when you've got the basics down. Sort out the start and the end as soon as you can. If you're doing something level based, get your first level and completion screens as quickly as possible. That way, as long as your primary gameplay loop works, you've immediately got something you could class as, really big air quotes, complete. If it works, it'll do. I realise we all love to polish our work and make it the best it can be. I myself am clearly a master of beautiful and stunning visual design. But as Voltaire once famously said, perfect is the enemy of good. So stop mucking about with your background art. Now these tips are for a game jam, but they also apply to your longer term passion projects. If you can get everything you're going to need working before you start moving forward, you'll always have a strong base to build your game on. And perfect really is the enemy of good. As I write this, Cyberpunk 2077 still isn't out. Developer CD Projekt Red are getting dragged backwards through the hedge of social media because their employees are still working overtime to bang out what I assume is now a day one patch. At some point, you have to call it done. One final personal note on managing scope and scale. If you've watched my previous videos, you might remember that I was moving house. I have now actually moved house to a house I am now responsible for. And that throws up possibly the biggest killer of an indie game developer's progress, whether in a game jam or not. Personal responsibilities. Terrifying, isn't it? Over this last weekend, in addition to making a video game, I had to work an overtime shift at my day job, cook a lot, eat a lot, tidy a house up, take the bins out, hang a picture, spend time with my long-suffering girlfriend. All horrible, terrible, very bad things that take away from the only good thing, video games. That is a joke. Well, not about taking the bins out, I don't think anybody enjoys that. What this means is my 48-hour game actually got about 12 hours of solid pure development time on it. Like I said, whatever you think you've got time to do, halve it, then halve it again. On the plus side, my girlfriend did buy us both pizza on Sunday night to celebrate me submitting the game. So there's definitely benefits to this whole arrangement, although I do feel there are probably cheaper and less complicated ways to get pizza that don't involve moving in together during a global pandemic. But never mind. If you'd like to play Are We There Yet? And this is the first time I recommend you actually do, because there's voice acting and dialogue that I think is best experienced firsthand. There's a link in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video, and if you'd like to see more videos of this nature, consider subscribing. I'll see you the next time I'm thinking, hey, let's talk game design.